Hi, I'm Joe Markley. If you know me well enough to bother watching this video, you're probably aware that I've been involved in Southington politics for a long time. It's my hometown and I have an attachment to it. My focus has been at the state level, but I've appreciated the support I've had locally, both within my own party and from voters as a whole. And I've tried to respect local decision making, both decisions by the party and by town council and local government. In the 8 years I was back in the state Senate, I never weighed in on the nomination of anybody for local office. I felt that the party could handle that. 10 years ago, I did voice my personal support for a young town council member who I thought had unjustly been accused of a conflict of interest. I was familiar with the situation and I knew the man as well, and I could vouch for his character, was happy to do so. And certainly no one ever complained that it was inappropriate for me to weigh in. I think the time has come for me to speak out again, and I'm afraid what I'm going to say will disappoint some of my friends in the party, but I think it has to be said. It's going to take a little while, so I'd ask for your patience and your attention. In 2021, it became clear that John Fusco was not going to seek another term in the State House. I worked closely with John. He's a friend, he's a man I respect, and I thought he was an outstanding, courageous, and disciplined state legislator. I soon heard that Bill Dietzick, a town councilman in the Republican Party, was interested in the seat, and I also learned that there was determined opposition to Bill within the party. There was a Facebook post in the wake of the January 6th disasters that to some people seemed to blame the party generally and the conservative movement for the events on that day. I went to the chairman, Steve Kalkowski. I went privately and I went quietly, hoping that a fight could be avoided. I told Steve what my concerns were. I didn't make any ultimatums. I just laid it out for him and left it to him for him to decide. I don't think, and still don't think, that there's anything inappropriate about that. In politics, I'd rather handle things quietly, especially in my own party. I think you're more likely to accomplish your goal, and I think it's better for the people involved not to have it brought before the public. In the end, Bill didn't run. Instead, we nominated unanimously a man who I thought was ideally suited for the job, Toni Morrison, somebody with a wonderful grasp of budgetary issues and a very level and smart head on his shoulders. I wasn't surprised that Bill had hard feelings about this. Hard feelings are common in politics. It's a competitive business, and at some point you find yourself on the opposite side from almost everybody. It's something that you learn to get over if you're going to stay in this business. I thought it was behind us. I didn't have any desire to hinder him. But some months later, Bill texted a friend of mine, Sue Zabahansky, a member of the town committee, a very active organizer, and threatened to destroy her in retaliation for what he saw as her role in denying him this nomination. And in the same texts, he claimed he had dirt on me, as he put it, of a Me Too nature. Now, Me Too has a very specific meaning. It's a movement that was begun by survivors of sexual abuse to call out men, overwhelmingly men, who had used their power or their office to coerce people sexually. It's a very dangerous accusation, and it's an offensive accusation, especially if you're not guilty of it. It was certainly the worst charge that has ever been lodged against me in my life, and entirely false, as Bill himself knew. Bill said to Sue, who he knew to be a friend of mine, that he had evidence of such behavior, and I took that as a threat, since he was certainly realized it would get back to me. By the time I found out about it, these texts had been shared with the members of the Republican Executive Committee and also with the Republican Town Council members. I sent Steve a text asking him to call me. When he did, we had a very few minutes conversation, and he said, "Joe, I've got to make a call for work, and I'll call you right back." I waited for hours, and then I waited for days until I realized that Steve had no intention of calling me back. It was a moment, I'll say, when I could have used a little guidance. It's ancient history. I don't bring this up to blame Steve, but I want you to understand what happened. I would have followed, I believe, any course he suggested to me, But when there was no leadership coming from him, it seemed to me that the next best thing was to go to the Republican Town Committee itself, which I did at the very next meeting. Against certain charges, I think a man is entitled and I think he's obliged to defend himself, especially when the charges have circulated in the public. I should have known the town committee was not the right venue, but honestly, I didn't know what else to do. Unfortunately, all I did was create an uproar and was then accused of orchestrating it. That's not true. I don't orchestrate uproars. Bill's personal attack on Sue Zabahansky was even more surprising to me and disturbing. He told Sue he'd destroy her brick by brick. Now, Sue is a strong woman and she has deep convictions. And it's possible that she can rub people the wrong way sometimes. But in my opinion, she certainly didn't do anything to deserve that kind of abuse. And the town chairman's only reaction to the text that Sue shared with him was to remove her from her positions on the executive committee and on the nominating committee of the party. I thought this was a prime example of blaming the victim and a very unfortunate and politically unwise decision. Sue decided to let the matter go. She didn't want to fight, and I understand that. Unfortunately, Bill Dietzick could not let it go. After a town committee meeting late this summer, Bill loudly and repeatedly harassed Sue, which led her to file a police report. Now, the town committee leadership knows all about this, but they've done nothing to discipline Bill. Instead, they've endorsed him for another term on the town council, the highest position in our community. And I believe this has only encouraged his aggressive behavior. Both Steve Kalkowski and his successor, Mark LaJoy, made it clear that Bill's threats and falsehoods were not their business. Mark LaJoy explicitly said that these concerns should be taken outside the party. To me, that means taking them to the town as a whole, and that's what I'm doing right now. Tolerance for lies and insults and abuse have really taken root in both parties at the national level. That is a tragedy beyond my ability to correct, but I don't want truth and decency to become irrelevant here in Southington. If the Republican leadership won't put its own house in order, I feel obliged to call out misdeeds in my own party, which I hold to a high standard. Long ago, I was one of 4 or 5 people who met in a little room over at the truck stop on Merritt and Waterbury Road to come up with a logo and a slogan for our local party. And we use it to this day. Team Republican, leadership Southington can trust. Due to negligent leadership, our party is not living up to that slogan, and other Republicans are aware of this. 2 prominent Republicans, men I've worked with and men I respect, Eddie Pocock III and Steve Salerno, have taken the exceptional step of running on the Democratic ticket this fall for town council. Like them, I don't believe this is the moment to blindly trust any political party. The voters need to judge candidates for themselves and judge them both by their record and by the issues they stand for. On those grounds, I can't support Bill Dietzick, a man who bore false witness against me and who has persisted in persecuting a hardworking woman who I admire. And on those grounds, I can't trust the leadership of Team Republican, who seem more concerned at this moment with retaining power than they do with holding themselves to a good ethical standard. Politicians won't behave responsibly unless the voters hold them responsible. Southington Republican leadership needs a wake-up call. The party doesn't deserve to lead if it endorses candidates who can't be trusted and who can't control themselves. I share these comments with you today honestly and regretfully, but without malice. I hope they spur reform in my party. I'm Joe Markley, and I thank you for your attention.